So Jackie Widmann is back with us today from BERO, our favorite non-alc beer brand, and just excited to check in with Jackie and see how the growth of the brand has progressed and some of the initiatives lately. And we are recording in January, which means it is dry January, so we're going to talk all about that, some of the campaign initiatives around the entire month and what's going on with the brand. But Jackie, welcome back to the show. So excited to have you again.
Thank you guys so much for having me back. I'm honored to be here and love everything that you guys are doing. Congrats on the launch of your new collective and just always here to support two great women doing some cool stuff. So I appreciate being considered and love chatting about all things marketing on Vero. So happy to be here.
We appreciate it, and we appreciate your
Thank
support.
you.
And just love, again, seeing and hearing about all things beer and what's going on, and just also with your personal career. So I'm going to kind of shift this question that we normally ask. I want to know what beer variety has been in your glass lately. What's a favorite?
Ooh, that's a good question. So we launched a collaboration with Happy Coffee that was a stout style beer, and that came out in October of this past year, and that was so perfect for the fall season. It was so delicious. It had this sort of nutty, chocolatey mouthfeel to it, and that was a recent favorite. Although I will say the Double Tasty West Coast Style IPA has risen to number one for me. And if I am craving a bureau at home or out with friends, that's the one I'm typically ordering.
Yes, Double Tasty is my personal favorite. So big
I
fan
know
of
I
that.
was going to say I have a noon wheat. That's my favorite. So
Wow.
I have like even a different one. So that's
Nice.
what's in my glass today.
Love
I
it.
love it. I love it. Well, Jackie, if you don't mind too, can you just quickly reintroduce yourself and the brand as well? For those of you who have not heard of Bureau, we did have an episode previously with Jackie, just kind of post-launch. So I'll link that in the show notes below. But if you don't mind, Jackie, just give us the download for
Yeah,
now.
absolutely. So I'm Jackie. I lead all global marketing and commercial efforts here at Bureau. I've been with the company now for about 2 years, which feels crazy to say because when we last spoke, it was probably a week or two after we had gone live with the announcement. So a lot has happened in about a year and 2 months since that day, but I really was brought on as like employee number 5, and we have been building this behind the scenes for about 10 months and then launched in October, and now we've been in market for over a year. But my role is really encompassing everything from global marketing strategy to how we speak about what our product is, what we believe in, the strategy, what we stand for, but then also how we show up and engage with consumers across really every platform. But we have a great cross-functional team, so the marketing org has grown quite a bit since we last spoke as well, which I'm excited to chat about. And we've now launched not only in the US but in the UK and at many, many more retailers across both regions, which is really exciting. So the role has certainly expanded since we first connected, but the business has grown quite a bit, and we've had a lot of really great storytelling, some amazing events and marketing moments throughout 2024 and 2025. And 2026 is really becoming what I think we feel like is our biggest year yet. And I'm really excited about it. I think we have more momentum now than we ever have. Tom is super engaged in all of the planning that we're doing, and he is an amazing partner, and we're just really psyched about what's ahead. And the non-alc space, as you guys know, is only growing. And so this dry January, I expect the data will show that it's bigger than it's ever been. So many people participating, whether you're dry or not, people grabbing a bureau, and we love to see it. So it's just been a lot of momentum, moving really fast, but it's been great.
That's incredible. Congratulations, first and foremost.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
sharing that. And I think one of the biggest moments for storytelling for you is dry January. So I'd love to dive in there a little bit. So, how far in advance are you actually planning for it? And what does that planning look like at a campaign level?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, we're a small company and a small team. So, I would like to say that we'll eventually get to a place where we're 6 months to a year out in terms of planning, but that's not the reality that we live in. So, we are building ideas and certainly storyboarding a bit, conceptualizing what the campaign could be earlier than a few months out from January. But in terms of execution, we have shot our campaign that's starting to roll out across socials over the course of December into January because we've got a lot of other things going on. So, I think at a calendar level when it comes to what are our pillars for the year, what are we focusing on in terms of messaging, where are we showing up, and who's our target audience that we really want to reach and why. That planning happens probably 4 months ahead of the cycle, I would say, which I'm pretty proud of. But in terms of actually executing a lot of that content and deploying it across our channels, it's a little bit closer to go time. So we've been, I would say, in pretty heavy execution mode on building our Dry January campaign from December through now. And some of it is still being shot even as soon as next week. And I think the beauty of our platform that we launched a couple days ago as well is this campaign, which we're calling 100% BERO, is meant to be a brand platform that can really exist throughout the year. And it's not about choosing 100% of the time to pick up a BERO, although we hope that people do. It's about what embodies our customer and the type of person that loves a BERO. It's the person who is confident, who embraces the unexpected. It's the person who appreciates natural, balanced products. It's the person who, wants to be out there and socialize with their friends and family and make the most of every moment. And that is what embodies 100% BERO. So we're here with you along your journey, whatever that journey looks like for you. And so that's coming to life across a bunch of really beautifully shot editorial pieces that our creative director has done a fantastic job with, and you'll see live on our socials now.
It was so fun. Allie and I were actually together when we saw some of the first posts go out around this campaign, so it was fun to just kind of see this go live for you guys and everything. So yeah, congrats on building that this year.
What's cool about it is we're able to sort of tie to different values that we as a business have, like being committed, being balanced, being natural, being focused, being social and fun and out there. But it also ties to our product and the core values of what make our beer unique. But it also ties to the values of our consumers and the people that we hope pick up our product. So we feel like it's really 360 and has legs to really last, and ultimately is rooted in our own logo, name, and likeness, which allows it to have a lot of kind of iterations. And by the time this launches, the podcast episode, we will have launched a global partnership with Barry's Boot Camp, which we'll be doing across the US and the UK. So we'll be their exclusive non-alc beer partner for the entire year, and vice versa. They'll be our exclusive boutique fitness partner for the year as well. And what that means is we can bring this campaign to life in an interesting kind of unexpected way as well, where in the Barry's studio, right, the Red Room, you give it all you've got. With BERO, we do the same in making the best high quality product as possible. So 100% committed, 100% BERO, Barry's and BERO partnering for the year. That's kind of the ethos in which this partnership can get brought to life within the realm of the campaign at large. So really excited about that.
That's awesome. And I also just, with that, both brands are very elevated. So just from a tone and branding perspective as well, it makes so much sense. And so excited to see that unfold too for you guys. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I want to kind of zoom out just a little bit and talk more of holistic brand strategy. When you first launch a brand, you have this idea of what the strategy is going to look like, and as things evolve and shift and you get some of those learnings and data back, you start to shift the strategy, right? Even just slightly. So I would love to just hear kind of what that shift has looked like for you. What are some of the focuses and areas that you guys are diving into lately and as we move into 2026?
I think there were a few things that surprised us and then a few things that we kind of knew. I think in terms of surprises, we invested more than we expected in the world of experiential and really showing up in big ways around cultural moments in 2025. And I think that was something that I'm sure we'll dig into as well as we keep chatting. But, that was one where we saw so much success and amazing brand love, not only from a press and earned media perspective, but from an influencer and social growth, organic perspective to sales leads, really interesting opportunities abroad in the UK from an activation we did during Wimbledon week. And investing in those sorts of moments, which came up sort of outside of the plan. We didn't have a big activation and an investment around Wimbledon in our calendar. Tom had an idea. We decided to activate around and against it, and it became one of our biggest moments of 2025. So in terms of where we thought we would spend from a marketing perspective versus where we spent, it was sort of interesting to see how the chips fell. The brand strategy that we set out to achieve and really message to the world when we launched the best thing about our strategy was that I think the comms hierarchy was really clear and people resonated with the positioning that we took in terms of where BERO fell within the non-alc landscape. We're really focused on being a great beer and a lifestyle brand, a premium lifestyle brand that happens to be non-alcoholic, but it's not about sobriety. It's really about this journey of socializing, being connected with the people around you, saying yes to all the things that spark joy and doing the most in your life. And the resonance that we've seen from consumers on that has been overwhelming. So in terms of sort of what we set out to achieve and what we saw, that was an amazing win. It felt like, we've learned a lot of interesting things from the data. 90% of BERO's current customers, they drink alcohol. So when it comes to how we message, the role that BERO plays in their social experience and routine, I think it's really important to speak to that community of people who might have a martini, they might follow it with a BERO, they might take a week off, they might do dry January, but they also might not, and that's okay. They just want a great product that they feel like represents them. And so I think that resonance has been really special, and Tom was a huge part of that. In terms of what we didn't expect, the experiential piece was a huge one. I think we had a lot of big goals in terms of what we wanted to execute. We had a really small team. So one of our biggest learnings was just you can't do everything. And, we would much rather be hyper-focused in terms of the tactics, the spend against them, and how many bodies or how many people are focused on those efforts and campaigns to make sure that we do them really well instead of trying to do everything at 80%. So that was something that as someone, I hold it close to my heart. I want to do everything. I want to be the yes person, but having to sort of be like, okay, you know what? We didn't invest in influencer in 2025 as much as we hoped that we would. It was just too expensive and we didn't have the resources for it internally. So we pulled back and focused on gifting and product donation much more deeply instead of really expensive paid influencer programs. So that's just one example, but we can dig in more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to also just hear too from a team standpoint. There's a lot of marketers listening who work for these startup style, smaller, agile brands. So how do you recommend to professionals to kind of just stay motivated and excited through some of these changes? And what are some of the skill sets that you're currently looking for as you build your team as well in this kind of environment?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the one thing I say to anyone who I've interviewed for a role at BERO is the job description certainly applies to what we hope that you can accomplish here. But you also have to be willing to embrace the chaos a little bit because, for example, we have a lot of really great integrated marketers, some of whom have really great specific specialist expertise in the pillars that they were hired to do. But it's not out of the realm of possibility that our trade marketing manager is going to have to show up at some consumer-facing events and activate at a music festival, even though her role is meant to be a little bit more B2B and focused on distributor and retail. And similarly, my social media marketing lead, who was hired to run our socials and be a community manager, she's now working on campaigns. She's working on some brand partnerships. There's a lot of opportunity in that for the right person. So embracing the chaos, but also being the kind of marketer who is eager to sort of get their hands in a bunch of different projects, ultimately find out what they like and what they're the best at. And then, there's always going to be room for everyone. We're still such a small business, and the marketing team has grown from, a team of like 4 when we last spoke to now 8. So we've, doubled in size, which is amazing. And it still feels like there is so much work to be done and not enough people, even though we've increased the size of the team and therefore increased our capabilities, all of which is true. It's just, there's a never ending list of stuff going on.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned that too, just about team members kind of shifting into these different capabilities. I think that's so important for marketers, especially in that kind of space, and being someone who came from a small business kind of startup environment, is not being afraid to share what you're passionate about. And as you kind of learn new skill sets, letting your team know like, hey, this is something I would love to pursue further and learn more about, and kind of support and raise your hand. And I'm sure you appreciate that too as a leader, of just having more hands kind of being able to work on some of those projects. So that's my piece of advice I'd pass on to marketers.
Yeah. I will say too, like, I love everything that you said. And I think we look for people who are excited about the opportunity to stretch into new areas that they may not know about or have ever worked in. But there's no perfect profile to come to a small company. And I think that that's the biggest thing that I would say to folks that might be younger in their career and looking for an opportunity in a small business. We're hiring for a role right now, a director of brand activation position that touches brand-led experiences and events, but also brand partnerships and really integrated 360 programs where BERO partners with another brand. And the background for that role, there's so many different ways we could slice and dice it. And I think that that's really important for people to realize. Like, you're not unqualified when you're coming in maybe with a different background, as long as you have the hard skills around navigating a little bit of chaos, understanding stakeholder management, really being on top of your deadlines and project management, knowing how to communicate cross-functionally, which is a huge part of any small company, right? Where, marketing is a unique division of any business, but especially in a small company, I talk to every single one of my leadership team counterparts almost every day. And so whether that's our brewmaster to our head of supply chain, to our head of finance, to our CEO, like, I'm communicating with everyone all the time. And I think that that's critical to how our business needs to function. We all have to be able to share the latest updates, pivot if needed. Mistakes happen. Everyone's moving fast. And so I think openness to that structure and a little bit of chaos, and certainly the understanding that there's no perfect background. You just have to, it's more about the personality fit and the ability to sort of fit into the environment than it is the hard skills in a lot of cases.
For sure. And I think something that you said there just kind of like I wanted to hook into, but like the relationship building with the cross-functional partners, right? Like that is so key when you're in a small business. Pretty more often than not, everyone needs to know everything, right? In some way, shape, or form. And so like thinking about processes on how you're actually funneling down that information and or at the team level funneling that back up to you and your leaders, right? So thank you for sharing that. I think that's really valuable advice for sure. I'd like to pivot back to experiential. I know we touched on it a little bit, but seeing what BERO did in 2025 particularly was incredible. It was a huge focus and a lever, I think, for the brand. And so you mentioned the kind of wrestle between the mental gymnastics, I'll say, between what to say yes to and what to say no to, knowing the size of the team. And so talk us through your decision-making process. How are you deciding what to say yes to?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think one of the most incredible things that came out of 2025, we had a ton of amazing launches, 2 new flavors. We, launched 2 new products. We had great events and experiences. We certainly got on the map, and the earned media around the brand and around Tom was beyond our greatest expectations. With that comes a ton of inbound opportunity and a small team to kind of sift through it and sort of discern what makes sense for us right now versus, what might make sense in 3 years. One of them that's been kind of funny that I think this audience will appreciate is I've been emailed or reached out to on LinkedIn by so many sports teams who think that just because we've had a lot of great press that we could afford to sponsor them for the year, which is amazing. And one day I hope we can sponsor many teams across tennis, paddle, football, soccer, all the things. But that's been one where I'm like, yeah, the press is great, but we're not quite there yet. But I think, more broadly to answer your question in terms of what we're saying yes to and what we're saying no to, I think it's a little bit of sort of executing on the plan that we had, making sure that we're making retailers happy, that customers are happy, that our D2C business as well as our retail business are serviced in the right ways, and that we're reaching the customers of those platforms, properly. But we also have to react to culture and, be able to sort of pivot in small ways, right? Where, Wimbledon again was something I mentioned wasn't on our calendar in as big of a way as we ended up activating, but we found the right opportunity. We moved really quickly, and what we saw from that activation was really incredible. And so, that's one larger example. Smaller examples that we have in the mix for this upcoming year are like, when shows are coming out that we, expect our customers to be really interested in. Is there a small out-of-home campaign where we could tap into the fandom around some particular show, whether that's on HBO or other platforms, whether it's a sporting event like the World Cup? How can BERO show up in a way that feels authentic to us, but, where we can make pub culture come alive with a product that allows people to have balance in those moments when they're watching the game. And so those are some smaller examples of, we may not be spending to sponsor the World Cup. Of course, we're still a small brand in year 2, but finding ways that we can show up, resonate with people, and be the beer of choice in an environment where, we're certainly welcomed at the table is a huge focus for us. So as we make those decisions, I think some of it is like executing to plan, making sure that our customers on the B2B side are really happy. So are we set up properly in store? Are we set up properly at bars and restaurants? Is our website working functionally in both the US and the UK? And then which moments do we want to align to on the calendar? How much are we investing in those moments? And then leaving a little bit of slush fund in everybody's brain for pivoting and reacting to things happening in real time or opportunities that might come via LinkedIn message that happen to be perfect for us and we just need to move on because it's too good to pass up. So it's a little balance of both, I would say.
Yeah, and I also think it's a testament. Like, you don't need these giant budgets, right, to make these really impactful consumer moments and moments for the brand. And so I think that's also a really good lesson for listeners is I think, sometimes we think we have to have these massive budgets to be able to put on these activations that people respond to. And that's just not the case anymore. It's much more aligned with the brand and how the brand makes you feel and that emotional resonance than anything else.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I want to mention too, we'll talk about community here in a second, but a part of community building is just being a part of these different niche areas of the world. And one example, I messaged you, Jackie, about this yesterday, but I was scrolling and I saw BERO pop up in a video with Mary-Kate Morrissey, who's like one of my favorite creators in like the theater space, but the interesting thing about her is she taps into all these different niche spaces. She's in the theater community, the vocal health community. She's also in the golf community. And so I'm just curious, like from a community building standpoint, what that has looked like for the brand and how do you kind of like place these parameters on what communities to tap in and what has the impact been for the brand in tapping into some of these different niche communities?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I love that you saw that post from Mary Kate authentically and I didn't send it to you. Love that. So I think, this year we invested in a handful of paid posts and influencer relationships, creator relationships to kick off Dry January in a more significant budget capacity than we had in years prior. So that was really exciting. Part of the brief that we gave to our team as they kicked that process off was really making sure that we had a few different folks in each kind of relevant pillar for our business. So a few in the more lifestyle space, which I think Mary Kate kind of touches. What about a few in the athlete or more sports adjacent space? A few in the more culinary, cooking and mixology and beverage space. And really making sure that we had kind of a breadth of different backgrounds and types of creators so that we can reach different pockets of culture by way of their audiences. So that's one. The second piece is we're building out an ambassador program that we've kind of been talking about internally for a long time, but this is less focused, this community, on, folks with big influencer size followings, though we welcome anyone with a following. But this is more for the average person who lives in a city, is looking to build community, is looking to be out at bars with other folks who love BERO and who want to connect over things like the World Cup or, the premiere of The Bachelor coming back or whatever it might be, and hosting events in places where we want BERO to be, right? Bars, restaurants, retail. And bringing people together who have shared interests around those moments. And so that's a really big focus for this year that we haven't kicked off yet, but we're starting to finalize the framework, and we have a few great folks across New York and LA and London right now that we're getting ready to sort of go live with. The model is sort of having, team captains in each city that are sort of the most connected to Marketing HQ and have access to our calendar of events, can start to mobilize their respective communities in whatever city they might live in. And then, we really bring people to life by way of giving them budget to play with, to order BERO out in the real world and invite their friends to do the same. And so we're kind of taking a dual approach, which I think will be really interesting for us, and having some folks that are paid on the brand awareness side to really lean into their brand equity, what they've built as an influencer and creator is great. Story, tell the brand in your own words. And then another group of people who are not storytellers or creators, but are just people who love to be out and about. And so having BERO in those environments is equally important. We just have to find the right ways to sort of, kick those programs off in tandem. So that's been a huge focus as we head into January, and I'm very excited to get that off the ground this year.
Yeah, and then how too are you guys approaching community digitally as well? Like one of the things that we noticed with the recent campaign is it's really engaging, it's asking people questions, it's asking them to kind of contribute to a conversation, but what does that look like from a digital standpoint too, so you kind of continue those communities online?
Yeah. Well, I have to shout out our creative director, Jacopo, and Chloe, who leads our socials, because this was really their brainchild. But I think, the images are so beautiful and editorial and meant to be really evocative of emotion and, engage people in a way where there's a feeling associated, where they maybe resonate with this person. Maybe that person is aspirational and they're like, I love this vibe. This is what I want to be doing when I go out to LA next. With a BERO in hand, hopefully. But the questions are meant to, one, engage people just to have a conversation around things that might be important to them and hopefully tie to the brand in some way. Also, we're giving away prizes and BERO merch and swag and product to folks who answer the questions along the way throughout the month of January. And then we also have a couple of different perks that are rolling out with our paid loyalty program. So that's called Club BERO, and we have a tier of Club BERO called BERO Masters. And BERO Masters pay a fee annually to get access to a variety of different perks, one of which is a twice annual Q&A with Tom. The other is access to our events, early access to new product launches before the rest of the world sees it. And part of that in this January will be some specific perks related to brand partnership launches and access to things like Barry's bootcamp classes, maybe that the rest of the community that follows us wouldn't get. And so there's sort of different tiers that we're building, some of which are for like our most active, highest paying customers. And we want to make sure those people feel motivated to stick with us and remain in that community. And then we also have our community that follows us on social, might not want to spend on an annual membership, but they still want access to perks or free things. And, we're trying to make sure that we can reach all those people and engage them in a way that feels, fun and playful without feeling like they have to check a box in order to win a prize.
But it's great to see that you're thinking about all of these different consumers and meeting them where they're at, right? Because they are all different, even though they have similar things in common in terms of their, whether it be demo, geo, whatever that looks like. So it's great to hear that you're taking that approach. And this has been such a great convo, Jackie. Thank you so much. We'll have to have you back to hear about how that program shakes out because I'm
Oh,
so
thank you. Yeah,
fascinated.
we're excited. I think it's just the beginning, hopefully, for BERO and the brand. And I'm psyched about the reception so far, but it's crazy because being in a company this small makes you feel like you've been somewhere for, I'm like, it's been 2 years. It feels like 15.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many people listening can relate to that if you've worked in small companies where you're sort of doing everything, but then you're like, how did we accomplish this in such a short amount of time? So it's been really fun, and I think the space is booming and there's so much momentum. So I'm excited to grow alongside some of the other brands in the space. I know you guys are tight with the folks at Dessois. We love them. And, seeing so many other really impressive non-alc beers pop up as well, whether they're more local or national, it's really great to see that the rising tide hopefully brings all ships where they need to go, and it's been really great and just a good indication of where the industry is headed.
Absolutely. And I want to ask one more generic question. Is there a marketing hill this year that you're willing to die on?
Oh, that's a good question. I am probably the worst offender of this answer, but what I'm gonna say is you can't do everything even though you want to do everything. And I
I
need
need that advice too.
I need to be better as a leader about not having eyes that are bigger than my stomach, because I tend to overcommit. And then, our Wimbledon week was a perfect example of that. I have no regrets, but we had 3 activations in a week with different brands, different talent. It was insane. Granted, it was an amazing week for the business, and, I would do it again, but we're growing. We have a bigger team. We have a lot more priorities to balance, new investors, new projects, new products that we're launching. And we really need to focus on the on the core pillars of our business, and, can't be distracted by shiny objects too much. while a little pivoting is okay, we really got to stick to what we're here to do, which is grow our business in the US and in the UK. And we want BERO to be showing up on every restaurant, bar, and retailer around the country. And in order to do that, we have to stay focused. So the hill I would die on is you can't do everything, even though you want to do everything. And I hope that I can be better at following my own advice in the new year, because there's a lot we want to do and I'm excited about all of it.
Yeah, no, same. And it's a good reminder just to, when decisions and opportunities come your way, just to make those decisions against that core goal. And if the answer is no, if it doesn't help you get there, maybe it's a next time or something you can do later. But yeah, such a helpful reminder, because I am also guilty of that. So thank you. We have to know too, as we close out, if you don't mind, just share with us, how can we stay in touch with you personally, but also, of course, BERO as well.
Yeah, I'm posting a ton about the journey of building BERO on LinkedIn, so definitely follow, connect with me there. It's been really fun to just see and connect with other folks, both in beverage but also broader CPG, really sharing a lot of the sort of build in progress, build in public mentality. So it's been fun to be able to connect with some great folks in that space. So LinkedIn for sure. And you can follow BERO at berobrewing.com and BERO Brewing on all socials. So check us out there, and we've got lots more to come.
Absolutely. We'll have everything linked below, so go check out BERO and connect with Jackie. Jackie, thank you so much for being here again. And like Ali said, we will definitely have you back soon, just to check in again.
Amazing. Happy to support and love what you guys are building. So thank you for having me, and we'll talk soon.